Hi students, I'm Mohammed Altaf. I welcome you all in my course of Information Security. Today I'm going to deliver my second online lecture and the topic of this lecture is access control. Outlines of this lecture includes access control and then types of access control will be discussed. Elements of access control and terminologies of access control will be discussed later on. After that, we will discuss basic access control models, and there are three basic access control models. These are mandatory access control, which is known as MAC, non-discretionary access control, and discretionary access control. Access control is the method by which system determine whether and how to admit a user into a trusted area of the organization. That is, information systems, restricted areas such as computer rooms and the entire physical location. Access control is achieved by means of a combination of policies, programs, and technologies. Dear student, access control is used to regulate who is and is not able to view or use resources in a computing environment. There are two main types of access control. The first one is physical access control and the second one is logical access control. Physical access control actually limits access to building, rooms, areas and IT assets. Physical access control refers to the selective restriction of access to a space. Physical access control utilizes keys, badges, or other tokens to allow access to certain areas. Examples of physical access control includes fob control gates, RFID doors, and password protected IT systems. While logical access control limits connections to computer networks, system files, and data. Businesses, organizations, and other entities typically use a broad range of logical access controls with the aim to protect hardware. These controls might include the use of sophisticated password programs, advanced biometric security features, or other methods that effectively identify and screen users. The exact type of logical access control used depend on the entity that owns and administrates the hardware setup. For example, government logical access security is different from business logical access security. This is because federal agencies generally have very specific guidelines for controlling access. Dear students, it is important for access control measures to be able to adapt with changing access requirements. Adaptable access control measures provide a smooth transition between restriction and access. However, each of transition must be carefully balanced with security. The best logical access control or physical access control depends on the situation in which it is being used. In today's environment, you can see that increasingly digital world is going to be introduced everywhere. It is more important than ever before for organizations to limit access to sensitive data and physical locations. Combining both physical and logical access provides a much higher level of security. Elements of access control includes identification, authentication, and authorization. Identification is the method of presenting credential through which a user is known to a system. Actually, identification is a mechanism where an unverified entity called a supplicant that seeks access to a resource proposes a label by which they are known to the system. The label applied to the supplicant is called an identifier, and must be mapped to one and only one entity within the security domain. Some organizations use composite identifiers, concatenating elements, departmental codes, random numbers, or special characters to make unique identifiers within the security domain. The next element of access control is authentication. Authentication is the process of validating users' claimed identity. Actually, authentication is the process in which the provided data during identification will be validated. There are three widely used authentication mechanisms, or you can say that there are three widely used authentication factors. The first factor of authentication is something a supplicant knows, such as password, passphrases, or other unique authentication codes such as personal identification number or PIN code. The second authentication factor is something a supplicant has, such as ID cards, ATM cards, or some smart cards through which authentication of the user will be carried out. The next authentication factor is something a supplicant is. Now, what is included in this authentication factor? It includes fingerprints, palm prints, hand topography, hand geometry, retina and iris scans. Or there may be something a supplicant can produce on demand, such as voice pattern signatures, voice keyboard kinetic measurements. And authorization is the matching of an unauthenticated entity to a list of information assets and corresponding access levels. Dear students, in general, authorization can be handled in one of three ways. The first way of authorization is that which is specific for authentication of each user. In this method, the system performs an authentication process to verify each entity and then grants access to resources for only that entity. This quickly becomes a complex and resource-intensive process in a computer system as the number of users increases. So, if there are more number of users, then the second method of authorization will be suitable. In this method, authorization for members of group is taken place, in which the system matches authenticated entities to a list of group memberships and then grants access to resources based on group's access rights. This is most common authorization methods ever used in organizations. The next method of authorization across multiple systems, in which a central authentication and authorization system verifies entity identity and grants it a set of credentials. In this slide, we will discuss basic terminologies and the basic access control models. The terminologies used in access control includes subjects, objects, and operation. Subject is actually the user of a system or a group of users which use the system. So we use the word subject for users in access control, while the object is the resources which is being used by the user, or it may be a file, or it may be a memory, or it may be a printer which is going to be used by a subject. So that would be considered as object in